Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Beauty for Ashes with Tania Joy Gibson. Y'all, today is a little bit of a dream come true for me. I will tell you, since this show started, this has just been a wild adventure, and I've just gone along with it and told the Lord yes with whatever he brings my way. And today I have the great honor of having Mr. Simon Parks on the show. I'm going to bring him into the studio. Hello, Simon.
Hi, Tania. Lovely to see you.
You as well. I am just so honored and so excited to have you on the show today. You, as I was saying backstage, have just been somebody that since I started waking up and really becoming aware of what's going on in our world and taking the red pill or whatever everybody wants to call it, you were one of the first people that I started to find online talking about things. And it definitely blew my mind. But it was stuff I was sensing and agreeing, like feeling.
Sure.
Wow. So welcome to the show.
Yes, going to say thank you for inviting me. Delighted to be here. And while we were, you say backstage, I say off air, we were just talking about Doug Billings, who, brought us together. And we were both saying what a great guy he was. So, yeah, probably a long overdue chat. So, it's your show. So we'll just go wherever you want to go.
That's fantastic. Yeah, Doug's such a great friend. And again, God puts our paths, the way that they go. And Doug was one of those people that I met not very long ago, I think in December. So yeah, God's funny. Anyway, well, so first I would love to know a little bit of your background and kind of, whatever you feel like sharing, but mostly how long. Because, you've got a lot of intel, and that's not just that spiritual and physical, mental, the whole thing. So, like, when did that start for you?
Well, I'm not sure how much your audience knows about me.
Yeah, that's why I thought it'd be fun.
I don't want to bore people. Some people may have heard it already. I don't know. Well, I'm British. I live in England or the United Kingdom. And my mother worked for MI5, but really she was reporting to the National Security Agency. And my grandfather, he worked for MI6, which is the external security service of Britain, but he was really working for the CIA. So that was the background. And in terms of intel, it started right then, because when people would come to the apartment, my mother was a single parent. When these guys would come to the apartment to discuss or hand work, my mother was what we would just call it back in the 1970s as a copy typist. This is before, computing was in the civil sector, but she had a gift to spell words. She was uncanny in her ability to spell. And so she would get these very complicated documents in German, which would then be translated, and then she would type them out in English. And that was her real gift, because she wasn't having to go to a book to check up a word. So when this was being discussed, they were discussed in front of me. So I was learning what we would call intel from, I would say, about 1966 onwards. So that's my background. And then I became a lawmaker, as you guys would say. We say a politician. I served 3 terms of office. And then I decided I would leave because I didn't like how it was going. And I'm very proud that I didn't lose an election and leave. I just left at the end of my term of office, and I didn't put myself forward again because I didn't like the system, and I'd gone as far as I could go. And so that's that. So about 10 years ago, I set up Connecting Consciousness, an organization that's worldwide. We have about 100,000 members. You don't pay to join. You just have to be spiritual. And a lot of them in America. And so I started getting visits. I started getting visits from people from representing President Trump, who called at the house here, did about 4 or 5 hours with me. Then we'd have someone from Putin turn up. They only did about 2 hours. And so it became very obvious that what I'd created was something that seemed to match what we would now call white hat's vision. And I remember someone from, from naval intelligence, United States naval intelligence, saying to me, "Look, Simon, you've created this with nothing. Supposing we give you something, imagine what you can do with it." So really, the intel never stopped. And it's about having, first of all, actually a connection to God,
Yeah.
and believing in God, and so you get a good idea of what's right and what's wrong. But it's also physical intel, people dropping me information, etc. So that's it in a nutshell. Also, it would be wrong of me not to talk about, that I did have what we would call experiences with non-human entities, and I've been very public. I'm very proud that I went public and then stood for election and was elected. So the
Yeah.
public, knowing everything, they still elected me, and the deep state hated that. They really didn't like it. And
Okay,
so
I'm gonna have to maybe ask you about that, because that is the one piece that, like, I've never seen you talk about that. I've heard about it, but just I haven't had the time and didn't know about it. And I was like, really? And I mean, I believe there are spiritual beings 100%. And so I'd be very curious. So maybe after you're done with finishing your thought, I would love for you to talk
sure,
about that.
sure, by all means. Yeah, so the intel is provided to me so that I can support the 100,000 connecting consciousness members. But I also do podcasts. And I don't
Mhm.
charge. Like you, I don't run adverts. And I think it's important that people have something to fight back against all of the lies coming out of mainstream media. So the intel never really stopped. It started at a very early age, and
Yeah.
it never really stopped. It just changed its focus, basically.
Hmm.
Okay.
And really, what great years. I mean, to really have that in the 60s, like, my goodness, that's
Well,
pretty
I'm
awesome.
not the only kid in school that would talk about Gary Powers and being shot down in the U2, and that, oh dear me, the United States Air Force wouldn't believe that he was actually flying at the prescribed height. But actually, he was, as we know, and Sam too brought him down. So it was that we were talking about. My mother used to drag me off with the ice station Zebra in 1968,
My
because
gosh.
it was about a submarine under the ice. And my mother had been working on secret work for the Americans. How do you communicate with a submarine under the pack ice? And in Ice Station Zebra film, they have to break the ice to send the aerial up. But of course, that you didn't have to do that, because they had a microwave system from space that they would go down and pass through the ice without being deflected. So she was doing what I'd call basic stuff like that, but then she would do really exciting stuff. So an unidentified flying object, a UFO, had been brought down over the Earth, and it was always an American team. American teams were dispatched,
Interesting.
and they would then send to their German scientists, Operation Paperclip, the German scientists, and the German scientists would be asked, well, what can we do with it? So we take a piece of equipment. What can we do with that? And hello, dog. So uh, that that group of scientists would come up with an application, and then that had to be translated out of German, because they were all Germans. So therefore, because Britain and America were working. Just a second, I just got to bring the dog. Don't be silly, girl.
Oh, that's our. Oh, look at how cute.
It's uh, I
Is
don't
that a
know.
girl? What's her
That's a
name? A
girl.
girl or
Yeah,
boy?
that's a girl. It's Freya. Come and sit still.
Freya. Look at how cute she is.
So
Is she
basically,
a, wow, is she a long-haired
no,
dachshund?
no. She's very odd. She's a working cocker spaniel. She's a working spaniel,
Oh,
but because her nose looks like that, she looks like a dachshund, doesn't she? But
yeah. She
but
has.
anyway, the other boy that's always on the podcast, Merlin, he'll be along shortly.
Is that the
He will
cat?
put an appearance. No, you'll see later when he decides that
Okay.
I'm doing a podcast. He
My
realizes
my dog's sitting right there, yeah, right at my feet,
yours is
and the
well
cat's
behaved.
locked out.
Yours is
No,
well behaved.
mine's scared.
Oh, bless them. So basically, just to finish up, then,
Yeah.
what would happen is that the documents would arrive to my mother by courier, and they would all be in German. And we'll talk about this later, but basically, she would have to use a system to translate it. And so that type of experience and understanding the depth of that it was normal in my household. We knew not to talk about it, outside of the apartment. But so I grew up in an environment where it was perfectly normal for all of this. And it's only
Right.
when you go to school that you realize that nobody else has that life.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. I mean, how
Well,
cool, really? How cool. That's why I mean, I've got kids. I have still some young kids at home um and it's like to me that's why this is important that we are talking about these things because we need more people to especially young kids to grow up knowing what's really going on and
well,
that it's
God,
not
God,
abnormal.
it's wrong to think that God just created one planet of life. God created everything, and there are many life forms. And I remember the last Father's Day interview that President Trump did while he was still officially in the White House, and his son asked him about Area 51 and Roswell,
Yeah.
and every other president would just laugh of it. But I remember what President Trump said. He said some very interesting things down there. He said some very interesting people, and one day we might talk about it. So, the truth will slowly come out, and the good guys know about it. But it's, as you said, you haven't heard me talk about it much. It's because at the moment my message is the same as yours. It's a patriotic message. It's about fighting for survival. And once we've won the
Yeah.
war against Satan, the devil,
Yeah.
then we can talk about all these other things. So the last sort of 2 years, I've been very much focusing on America, but not
Yeah.
exclusively, but America because that's where the fight is.
Hmm. It's kind of the base I mean, we know what happens here affects the rest of the world.
Yes.
It's been crazy. I mean, this blows my mind. I can't believe I'm living in alive in days like this. I mean, they're biblical days,
Yes, they
but
are.
they almost seem too surreal to me
Well,
anyway.
I mean, even mainstream has been reporting locusts falling out of the sky or fish falling out of the sky, and you've only got to turn to your Bible to say, well,
Yeah.
this is not the first time this has happened.
Hmm.
And a lot of what was predicted is coming true. The difference
Right.
is we're not going to destroy ourselves. We're actually going to come through this and be victorious. But we can use the Bible as a warning about what can happen if you take your eye off the ball. So,
That's right.
the organization I created is for anyone spiritual. You don't have to just be Christian. You can be a Muslim, you can be a Jew, anything, as long as you're spiritual and as long as you're a white hat. If you're anti the Satan, then I'll take you on into my organization. Well, but unfortunately, there are quite a lot of very evil people out there,
Yeah.
and they're showing themselves for what they are.
Oh my gosh, aren't they? Yeah, it's like watching it is like watching a movie to me because I mean, I'm kind of more of a seer, so I can see it. If I see certain people, it's like you can see the demons on them. You can see the
Yeah.
things that are operating with them, and we are in a war. I mean, well, we're obviously heading into this crazy physical war, which I would love to talk about Russia and Ukraine, but this is a spiritual war. I mean, this is an absolute battle of good versus evil. And if we can ask the Lord for the eyes to see in that realm, my gosh, I mean, we're all warring.
Yes, it is a war, and fortunately, we seem to be winning it. So that's really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, really good.
Now, what are you seeing as far as Russia and Ukraine? I've got my thoughts on it, but I want to hear what.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Putin's been desperate to get in there and sort this out for a long time, but because he's part of the White Hat operation, he bided his time. And what really swung it, there's been a lot of reasons, but the real reason is not widely reported at all. So you might be the first person to hear this. I'm not sure, but basically, Russian spy satellites picked up a heat signature under the old destroyed Chernobyl nuclear power station. You may remember reading that many years ago it blew up. It was an
Hmm.
accident,
Yep.
passed a lot of radiation everywhere. Well,
Yep.
Putin sent those spy satellite pictures to the Pentagon because actually they do get on. And they said, look, somebody's spinning uranium. Somebody's making a nuclear bomb here. And it was very clever of the deep state because they knew that it couldn't be taken out by a cruise
Yeah.
missile because it would spread radiation all over the planet. And that's why, and mainstream media even reported it, that's why Russian paratroopers went in to capture it. And nobody in the mainstream was asking, why are Russian paratroopers fighting over a destroyed old nuclear power station? Well, that
Exactly.
was the reason. Now, Ukraine is the #1 world's largest reservoir of uranium. In other words, there's more uranium in the earth in Ukraine than any other country. And that's why the deep state started to make a nuclear bomb. So Putin was not going to have a nuclear bomb on his doorstep, and neither was anyone else. And so the White Hat said, look, we can't go in because people will say, what's it got to do with you? But you can go in because technically Ukraine is still Russia. So this was the turning point. Never mind all the biological labs that existed there. It was that was the turning point. And that's why these key cabal mafia operations have been taken out. Putin is not fighting against the Ukrainian people, he's fighting against the mercenary soldiers of the deep state.
I'm so glad to have you say that, because that's what in much better words, I'm like, something is off. I mean, there's just too many. I mean, half of our administration, all their money is coming from there. There's been so much that we've been told.
Mm.
When this started, I thought, that's not what's going on. This is something. Oh, this is a whole different story than. And I don't watch the regular news, but even the little bits that I was getting of the stuff I do, I was like, there's something else going on here.
Well, awake and aware people will put two and two together, and they'll remember Hunter Biden and all the business with Ukraine and Biden's, and what a surprise, Putin's going into Ukraine. So awake and aware people will realize that what they're being shown on television, as usual, is not the truth. Now, the other thing is that we shouldn't be surprised if China attacks Taiwan.
I was just going to ask you about that.
For the same reason that there's deep state facilities under the Obama presidency. When Obama was president, some things were set up in Taiwan, which have got nothing to do with Xi Jinping or the Chinese people, but have got everything to do with the Chinese Communist Party.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. So, I mean, do you think that this stuff with Putin and the Ukraine, I mean, do you think that the truth of that will come out?
What a great question. Not at the moment, because so this is very difficult, because while Putin is painted as the really bad man,
right,
he's quite useful in the world stage. If he was rehabilitated now, it would reduce the options that are just around the corner. So I think at the moment, the image that is being painted by the mainstream is actually what is required until some things change, and then Putin will be rehabilitated. In actual fact, Putin will be one of the few leaders left. And the very fact that he's left standing, I think, will show everyone, what has been going on. So
I mean, I know he can, there are things that you could say that would make him bad, but I would look at it. I mean, him and Trump were like, I mean, they interact. To me, I feel like there's something there that he's not as bad.
This is Merlin coming up now.
Oh,
come and say hello. Come on. Here he comes. So
how cute.
I'll just say hello to you.
Is he the same kind of dog? Oh,
yeah. He's different.
Merlin, look at how pretty you are. Oh my gosh,
go.
look at how cute he is. He looks right at the camera like he's...
Oh, he's terrible like that. The thing is,
adorable.
When Trump was at CPAC and when he was chatting to others, he's quite right, because Putin would never have done this if Trump was officially the president. Look, Trump negotiated Afghanistan, and the Biden administration ruined that. Trump had a really good relationship with Putin, and Biden's ruined that. You got the same damn thing going to happen probably with North Korea. You've got the same thing that's going to happen between Taiwan and China. I mean, how much more of a wrecking ball can this Biden character be? And it's beyond me that He hasn't been removed yet. I don't understand that. But no, if Trump had been officially in position, then Putin would never have needed to do this, because Trump would have
Oh,
dealt with
Trump would have done it. Yes.
it politically, quietly, nicely. That's how Trump would have done it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very good point. How, I mean, again, I got another loaded question for you. How how long do you think much more that this is going to last? I mean, do you think that, because I go back and forth, feeling that Trump is going to be reinstated
Oh,
before
he will be. He will be.
you, okay. When I say that, people think I'm crazy, and I don't
Well,
really care. I don't know how it's going to happen.
look,
I just,
look, the fact of the matter is, I don't actually think that President Trump wants to come back and do a full term. He's done his job, but I think he would like to come back and do 120 days or 3 months or so as the president, and then maybe call fresh elections and say, you know what, I'm done. I'm having a vacation. But I think he's got to come back, because it brings everything full circle. You know,
right.
he was cheated out of the election, so he should officially be recognized that he won. Then he would come back, be the president for a period of time, and then hand over to a new time. You're asking for time zone. I actually think we're very soon. I think by June of this, the beginning of summer, I think everything will be done. Everything.
Really?
Yes, by June, everything, and I mean everything. I mean a new financial system. Going
Really?
well, Putin's going back onto gold today and tomorrow.
Oh my
Russian
goodness.
ruble is going to be precious metal backed. That's why he doesn't give a damn about
Wow.
the world, cutting him off this and cutting him off that, because he's got enough precious metals to back his currency. So he's not worried at all.
That's fascinating because I mean, I follow all of that. I've been in the process of changing over, my personal things, kind of preparing whatever I can.
Okay.
Um, but I've been curious, like, I hear, oh, maybe May, maybe February, and then the time comes and goes and you go, what, it's a tricky one. It's really tricky.
Right. Look. Christians don't need people to tell us that Neptune is in this juncture. We're not into zodiac stars like that. That's the
Right.
cabal. That's the cabal. So what the White Hats have been doing is utilizing that to send messages to disinformation. And often you'll look at these intel boards and it's tomorrow, 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 and that's actually just playing the bad guys. So the real issue, I think, for us is that there can be no salvation until the Biden character is out of office. And so it's no good people pushing for dates that
Yeah.
this is going to happen, that's going to happen, if Biden is still there. Because if we're talking about a new beginning, you
Yeah.
can't possibly have that with the old guard still in the White House. So
That's
when
right.
Biden goes, for whatever reason, could be a heart attack, could be a mental breakdown, it could be anything at all. When he goes, then we are just days away from a complete freedom.
Wow. That's really good and very encouraging. I
Well,
hope it happens
so
soon.
well, look at the way that a lot of the unawake and unaware people don't understand anything. For years and years, the deep state have manipulated the mainstream media. But
Right.
what's happening now is that the White Hats are beginning to create actions on the ground,
Yeah.
which is not coming from the deep state. So the deep state don't know how to report it. They haven't a clue how to do it. When the Nashville 2 years ago now, when the Nashville explosion occurred, that wasn't the deep state. So the deep state had no clue how to report it. And what they're doing now with the news is they're filming, uh, bits and pieces, but they're doing it without any direction from their evil handlers. And the agenda is being set by the White Hat. So the whole trucking business
Yep.
into Canada, that was all controlled by the White Hats. They held the agenda there. And look what's happened. Canada's announcing it's going to drop all of its COVID mandates. So it worked. That
Yeah.
trucking convoy this Saturday should hit DC. Biden calls out the National Guard, and the National Guard say, we will turn up unarmed. So the National Guard have said to Biden, we will turn up because you have the right to call us. We're not going to bear arms, and
Yeah.
we will not participate in any law enforcement. So basically, the National Guard will just stand there. And I hope that what happens is the National Guard form a line
Yeah.
between police and the demonstrators, because what's happening across the globe is the police are being shown as the enemy. Now, it
Yes.
doesn't mean that they all are. There's a lot
Right.
of bad cops, but what's happening is that it's the people versus the police,
Yeah.
and that's actually either intentionally or unintentionally. That's what's coming out of this.
Yes. It is, and it's sad. I was at a room or an event. I don't even know what it was, but it was in a ballroom,
Uh,
and two police walked in. Now, I didn't think anything. I didn't feel scared. I felt like I'm kind of glad they're there. But then someone else that was with me said that makes me uneasy because of everything that's going on, because you don't know which side are they, and are they coming from a good place, a bad place? And I'm like, geez, I never even thought about that. But it's kind of the days we're in, right? I mean, unfortunately. They're not all bad. I mean, I support our
no.
police 100%, but I hope and pray that more of them will keep standing up.
Yeah, I think the thing is that what this will be interesting is it'll be the truckers versus the Capitol Police. Let's
Yes.
be quite
The deep.
clear on that.
Hmm.
Yeah, it'll be the Capitol Police,
Yeah.
and the Capitol Police have got a lot to answer for what
Yeah.
occurred at the Capitol building. So, um, I'm hoping that what the truckers and the people achieved in Canada will be achieved in Washington.
Yeah, me
I
too.
just assume that Biden will just be taken away by his handlers and hidden somewhere.
Hmm. I would imagine. I just saw something yesterday that I didn't open it, but it was a headline that said Biden in hiding or something, and I
Right.
thought, well, yeah, of course he's in hiding. That's what's going to happen now. He'll disappear because God forbid, they have to
Well,
answer to
your
the people.
constitution is very interesting because if Kamala Harris, for whatever reason, is not interested, then it's the Speaker of the House. Now,
Yeah,
there's one thing
exactly.
that would guarantee the United States of America to be up in arms. It would be Nancy Pelosi
Yeah.
becoming president. That ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. But what I'm not clear on is how you get Trump back in. The only way that's
I'm
going to
glad you wonder that too.
well, it's the mechanism for it, because the
Yeah,
only way constitutionally that can occur is if the House, working with the Supreme Court,
right.
can accept and show that the election was rigged and therefore the loser was in fact the winner. Now,
Correct.
that's a constitutional process, but how many of us want to wait 6 months for a constitutional process? Not
Right.
really. So we're looking for more of a dynamic way to bring truth to what is, of course, fantastic country, the United States of America.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I always rest and go, God's going to do something that we're going to all go,
Well, he has
uh,
to, because no
no,
one else.
right. There's no human. I mean, I
No.
remember when this all started, a couple years ago. I mean, when I started waking up and some of the first things I was hearing, and then the elections, and it was like, you know, the only way this will happen is everybody will see that this was God and that he did this.
Hmm.
Just kind
Well,
of exciting
well, yes, but it's
that we
very.
get to live and watch it.
We do, but it's it's caused a lot of damage. A lot of people have lost their
Yep.
lives. A lot of people have lost their family friends, or
Yes.
their best friends are no longer talking to them.
Mhm.
Never mind, did you vote for Trump or did you vote for Biden? That was a big splitter
Oh my
of
gosh,
family
I know.
relations. But this is bigger because you are either supportive of sticking needles in your arm and
Yeah.
doing what you're told, or you're actually a free will, free sovereign person,
Yeah.
and you're not going to have it. So we've got a very divided world, not just America, a very divided
The
world.
world.
Those that are awake and those that choose to be asleep, and it
Yeah.
can't go on much longer.
I agree with you. I can't imagine it. I'm actually shocked that it has taken this long. I thought by the 1 year mark we would have, but then every day when more and more comes out or we see another piece of the puzzle, for me anyway, I go, that's why. That's why it hasn't happened yet.
The only thing I can think is that the enemy are so deep rooted that it's taken this length of time to undo enough to be able to have some form of freedom. In other words, I'm sure that what Putin is doing is totally taking away the financial base for
Yeah.
the Bidens. I think that's destroying the deep state's financial reserves. I know I was told there were gold vaults in Ukraine, which the Russians have captured away from the mafia. So, I guess we could never have had what you and I and the others wanted 3 months ago because
Right.
this was still in Ukraine. I think we've got to get rid of this in Ukraine and one or two other places before we can go to where we want to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. My thing is always, I'm always just praying, let it go quickly. I'm always praying, protect the innocent lives and let this all go quickly.
Mm.
Wow.
Well, it's a war, and it is funny that when we see some of these images from the cameras on the cities of Ukraine, uh, all the lights are still on, the street lights are still on, the shops lights are still on, and that's not a real war because in every war that's been filmed, when you're being bombed, you turn all the lights off. It makes it harder for the enemy to see where they are. But time and time again, we're seeing these cities with their full lights on, and it does really explain that the authorities know that it's certain military places that are being hit or caches of arms. They're not bombing or not trying to bomb the people. They're not trying to hit the apartment blocks. There's no value in that.
Right.
The real war was a Second World War when German bombers were literally bombing apartment blocks in Britain, and Britain did the same, and so did America. That's a real war
Yeah.
when civilians are being deliberately targeted. Now, that's not what's happening in Ukraine.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I hope the truth comes out, but it's not going to come out just yet. There's too much else to be done.
Yeah. Wow. I could sit and talk to you for hours and be like, okay, let's talk about this now. Let's talk. It's so fascinating, and
Whatever you want to talk about, it's fine.
I love it. What are you seeing now? I don't know what the mandates are by you guys. Do you still
There,
have to be
there,
vaxxed? Are they
no,
done now?
there are none, no
There's
mandates.
none.
No. Well, what happened was that President Trump was on a radio show with Hannity
Hmm.
in January, end of January, and Trump just came out with a strange one-liner, and it was, "I've been green lighted." Now we know what that means, but of course the vast majority of people have no clue. Well, the very next day, the British Prime Minister was doing a speech, and he wore a green tie. So we know exactly what that means. So Britain was one of the first countries to drop all of the mandates.
To drop it. I thought
Yeah.
I remembered. Now that you said that, I do kind of remember that. I mean, we're starting to see it here. I'm in the suburbs of Chicago. Chicago's been I mean, that's a bad city with the politics, right? And it's a beautiful city, but the politics have destroyed it. But I mean, you couldn't even take the train, take anything down there without showing papers. We had to show, so my son, nobody went down there. Well, 28th, a couple days ago, that's all gone.
Yeah.
All at
Yeah.
the same time of all this stuff going on. I mean, that's not a coincidence.
What it's done is it's shown the United States citizens the mindset of their respective governors.
Hmm.
That's what it's done. And it means that come the elections, a lot of governors are going to be swept out, even in safe Democrat seats. They're going to be wiped out politically simply because it's been very painfully obvious that the laws and rules regarding the COVID are politically actioned. And here's the joke. Why is it you could go into a restaurant during the days of the COVID and you'd have to wear a mask, but
Yeah.
you could sit down and
Hmm.
take your mask off? So the joke was that the COVID virus was at head height, but when you
Exactly.
sat down, it wasn't. So, when we understand that it was a political weapon,
Yeah.
then we can understand when a governor is pushing it in and making it tough, like in New York, for instance,
Right.
parts of California. um, you then you compare it with Florida, and
Right.
you look at the difference. And so I think that what's happening is that people will understand this is a political weapon, and I'm
Mhm.
sure that even in safe seats, where people think they're safe, they're going to be wiped out. I'm sure of it.
Do you think that this is going to now disappear ultimately because of what's going on in Russia and Ukraine?
Yeah, it's the deep state are
'Cause
not deep state are not interested in it anymore. It's done
yep.
its part. It didn't work. You see, it could never work because Hillary Clinton wasn't elected. The whole plan was to get Hillary elected
Hmm.
and then to have 6 years of
Yeah.
lockdown. So 4 full years of her first term and then 2 years of her second term. So when she wasn't elected, the whole of their train came off the tracks. That
Yeah.
was It wasn't just that the Democrats lost. It was the whole deep state plan was
Yeah.
off the tracks. And people will in the future, and history books will look back and
Yeah.
say not just Trump, but the men and women behind Trump actually saved humanity, and that will
Yeah.
come out.
I know. I think that's fascinating. My daughter's 16, and she doesn't really like politics. She doesn't like when I'm talking about everything that's going on. And I told her the other day, I said, "You got to understand, you're living through history. You're going to get to tell your grandkids you were alive during literally it's like being alive in 1775 all over again." And she was like, "I don't want to hear about it." But I'm like, "Seriously, this is going to be so amazing that we've lived through
I
this."
remember in 1969 when the televisions were all full of people going to the moon, and most kids didn't care about it. It's only later on that you put something into perspective, into the whole picture of what's going on. So yeah, it is amazing. But anybody who's alive today witnessing this chose to do this. We chose to be here, to be
Yeah.
part of this, either as just audience or whether to be acting in it and doing something. But it is a fantastic opportunity to observe humanity, and a great gift to be here at this time,
Sure
because
is.
I do believe in reincarnation. um, God says we're reincarnated, and I guess that people will fight to get down here. There's only a limited number of space on the earth, and I bet a lot of people said, I want to go down, I want to go down, I want to be there at this time, I've got a job
Yeah.
to do. So yeah, a great time, but let's not forget that lots of people have suffered.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's been terrible. We lost, I mean, because of all the COVID stuff, we lost my uncle and my grandpa within a month. One from the vaccine and one from the wrong treatment. So
Yeah,
I think this has hit everyone
well,
in
you,
some
you,
way.
you've said that. I mean, I know that the COVID was real because we were told by American intelligence. I don't mean the CIA. We were told by the military American intelligence what had gone on, but what's been doing the damage is people going to hospital and getting the
Right.
wrong treatment.
Right.
That's really what's happened. And then
That's what killed it. Yeah.
you've got the vaccines,
Yeah.
and when you put the two together, it's in my opinion, it's killed more people than anything else. That's what's done the damage.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yep, totally agree. It's frustrating. It gets me very, very frustrated because I've known a lot of people who have been killed based on hospital protocol that
Mm.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just murder. It's flat out murder. It's
Well, yeah, probably manslaughter, but
yep.
it does need to be addressed. The difficulty is that what do you do? Do you put 20,000, 30,000 medical practitioners through court?
Yeah.
Who's going to run the hospitals?
Right.
If you wipe out all of the medical staff from that job and send them home, how are you going to run hospitals? So surely it's got to be about education. Surely what we do is we go after the people who planned it and designed it.
Yeah.
But those who just did it, we've got to re-educate them. Now, if you find a doctor who knew what he or she was doing, then that's different. But to
Yeah.
be honest, I think most people just looked at the manual. What do
I
I
agree
do
with
with the patient?
right.
Oh, I do this, I do that. They
Yeah.
were following orders. So,
Yes.
it's like many other industries. You can't run a country if you take out all of your doctors or all of your
Right.
police. it is a difficult one, and it will take years to put right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This was fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me. I would love to have you back on again someday and dive.
Are we finished then?
Would you have more? Let's keep talking.
Yeah, I'm just warming up. Why do you want to go?
Oh, well then let's keep going. I like to be respectful of my
No,
guests' time. I
I'll
love your
tell you.
kitty cat up there. Who's your
No,
cat behind you?
I'll tell you when I've had enough.
Okay, perfect.
That's Oh, I don't know. That's another one of them. We've got 9 here, 9
You have
cats.
9 cats?
Yeah, 9 cats and 3 dogs. Hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. We have 2 cats and one
Oh, well,
dog.
you've got a long way to catch up then, haven't you?
My daughter would like about 7 more cats. She keeps saying we should have gotten a kitten, and I'm a sucker. I love cats. We had a cat with really long fur, and we just had to have her shaved down a little bit because
Okay.
she was all matted, and we were all nervous about oh my gosh, what's going to happen to the cat. She's so cute. She looks like she's a teenager. She's got these long legs. We were like, we had no idea. She was so cute under there. So now we're going to
Oh,
keep her like that.
okay. As long as she's happy, that's all that matters.
She's happy. Yeah. Well, no, let's keep talking then. This is
Fine.
awesome.
It's okay. What do you want to
Do
talk
you
about?
think that they will ever get to, I've seen some of I don't know what they're called off the top of my head, but they're trials. They're different leaders of nations, similar to basically trying to hold another Nuremberg trial. And they're trying to, from the little bit that I know about it, they are going after the crimes of humanity that the deep state and everybody involved in that has been part of. Have you heard about that?
Well, what they've been doing across the globe is setting the scene by obtaining the documents, getting local law enforcement to at least accept there's been a crime. Now, they've been very successful in doing that, but what they haven't been successful is the prosecution of that. And in other words, whilst most police forces across the planet have agreed with the evidence they've been given that a crime has been committed, they are not prepared to move against the cabal until they are absolutely shown proof that the cabal is finished. So in other words,
Oh,
we shouldn't
okay.
expect any trials from the civilian side until the cabal is officially out. Now, there will be military tribunals, but they've been taking place outside of the public gaze. There's about 7 or 8 locations.
Okay, I've heard about that. So that is happening.
It's been happening for nearly 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, I saw one like clip of something. Obviously it's not easy to find the information out about it. So,
No, it's not going to be advertised because um, the White Hats. I disagree with some of the commentators. I'm not convinced that the White Hats are going to give 100% of the truth out. I just, having been a lawmaker for 3 terms of office,
yeah.
um, I, with the great respect to a lot of people, I've actually worked in government and seen how government works.
Yeah.
And I'm not convinced that all of the truths that we would like to come out are going to come out. If
Okay.
they were, these military tribunals would have been done in public. The very fact they're being done in private tells me that there's no intention of telling the citizens the specifics. They might do a generalization and they may record 1 or 2 which they want to use as a bridgehead into waking people up, but ultimately a lot of the stuff, I mean, for instance, how can you tell people that Hillary Clinton is dead and
I
that
was just going to ask you that. That's crazy.
the person well, we're psychically connected. When you've got patriots together who believe in God, there's that what we call connecting consciousness. All people are on the same wavelength because the
Yeah.
God frequency connects us. It's when you bump into a Satanist and you think, I've got no connection to that person. That person gives me the creeps. So you can't say to the general public, well, actually, the person calling herself Hillary Clinton is not the real Hillary Clinton. So there's a level of intel for one level, and there's a level of intel for another level. And the official line is, of course, that this is Hillary Clinton. So that ain't going to change. That's the
Yeah.
official line. But I believe differently.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that differently too. I don't believe I don't believe the person that we see is her at all. I mean, I think it's been an actor for quite a while. I frankly actually think the same of Biden. I could pick out three different
Yeah,
ones,
yeah.
and people think I'm nuts, and think I'm
Well,
totally wrong,
yeah,
but
well, this is why we'll always be, I hate the word fringe. That's why we'll be the fringe, because whilst the white hats, because we're all compartmentalized,
Mhm.
whilst the white hats absolutely love what we're doing, they don't want that to be in the main frame of news, because it doesn't work well with their story. I mean, their story is that, Biden is Biden and Hillary is Hillary, and they're doing their own thing. So if we were to say, well, actually, they're actors, it
Right.
totally undermines the whole game that's being played. So this story will never come out, never ever come,
Wow.
because it would destroy. Because let's just say, for instance, somebody said officially, "Oh yeah, Biden's an actor."
Yeah.
The question is, well, who was controlling him? All of the questions that would come from that disclosure.
Imagine the truth that could come out. I mean, we
But
would
that's not going to
totally
come out.
wake up.
Yeah, but the truth is not going to come out. Why would that? Why would they want the truth out? Because it would
Yeah.
destroy the
Destroys everything.
whole. Well, yes, because the question is, well, if Biden was an actor, who was employing him?
Correct.
So the whole here series of questions. So let's leave it at, well, Biden's Biden. That's the way it is. But on the more informed websites, the more
Yeah.
informed chat shows, we have detected things like the earlobes of Hillary Clinton are completely different from the earlobes of the person that we see, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And to the
I
point
saw a
where,
picture of her and Bill,
right?
that was from years ago when they were in office, and then the
Yeah.
new one of them, and she's inches different in
Yeah,
height.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She's about 3 or 4 inches from shorter.
I
Yeah.
mean, like that, yes, I understand you shrink a little bit with time, but you
No,
don't
not
shrink 3 inches. You shrink like half
no.
an inch, barely.
Yeah, and what I was told was that they knew that when they selected her to play the part, but they didn't have anybody at the right height with the right facial features. And although she was very wrong in height, the facial features were so good that they said, we're going to have to take a gamble with this, and that's apparently why you got her.
Okay, here's a question for you. How do you think, because so my background, I actually am an actor and a singer.
Excellent.
So I do
Right?
stage acting, stuff like this. How do they, well, this is a two-part question. One, do you think that those people playing the actors
Hmm.
are human?
Hmm.
Or two, if they are,
Hmm.
how are they not letting this out? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you get that many people to actually, unless they're literally, their lives are being threatened, I guess, but how do you get that many people to not accidentally slip?
Okay. So the first question is, yes, they are human.
Okay.
Have to be human, because if they weren't, they would not be able to emulate all of the actions, emotionally and otherwise, that a human would have.
Okay.
The second question is because it is the biggest acting job, not just of their career, but of the world. You imagine being offered the greatest opportunity to act, and most people think of playing, William Shakespeare, or playing Winston Churchill, or Jefferson, any of these characters. But supposing someone said to you, "Listen, we want you to play a president, but nobody must know about it. And you know what? There's $100 million for you at the end of it." That's why they don't talk. That's why they do it well, because it's the greatest role that they've ever played in their life.
Wow. Yeah, and then if they're bribing them, obviously, I'm sure with
What?
very big
No, no, no,
bucks.
no. It's not bribing. It's a
Well,
job. It's a
it's
wage.
just a
You
job to them.
play this role as an actor, as you would on television
But
or film, and we will pay you at the end of it your salary, which will be $100 million for acting out. That's what it's about.
do you think that the person knows that I mean, you would think they know they're deceiving the entire world, though, right?
Yes, but they're white hats, because they know that they're doing it for good purposes and not bad purposes. So here's the problem: how can we go to the main group of patriots? How can we go to the main group of awake and aware people and give this story? That's why you're nuts, you're cuckoo, you're crazy.
Yeah.
So that story it's got no wheels, it can't go, because the white hats don't want the public to know that, and the black hats don't want the public to know it. Nobody's got a vested interest in telling the truth about that. But
except all of us.
People being people, they'll look and they'll say, look, like you did, hey, I've got a picture of Biden 5 years ago, and here it is. That's not the same man. So, those who are researching it, they actually come to the same conclusion that you did and I did and many others did. But those who are not bothered, or just accept what the New York Times tells them, then they just take the narrative, and that's fine.
Do you think that it will be that way throughout this entire transition? Do you think that, because I believe that we are definitely moving into an entirely, I think, 5-10 years from now, it will not even look anything like the reality we have right now. Do you think that eventually those things will, how do I want to say it? Will there always be people in all camps?
No, the answer is yes, because as we grow closer to God, we retain what's good and we lose what's bad, and we grow and develop, and our spirituality increases and our vibrational frequency increases.
Yes.
So we call it the fifth dimension. So as we do that, we find that we've got abilities and skills to know the truth that those stuck in the third dimension have not. And it's because we are transitioning into this new light world that we are beginning to see the lies. Whereas 5 years ago, 7 years ago, nearly everybody, look at when 9/11 occurred. Most people bought that on the day it happened. They just bought that. You couldn't do it now and get away with it. So we are changing, and people will know the truth, but they'll also perhaps know the reasons why. And so there'll be more understanding. If you said the truth to somebody now, they would be so angry, and they would reject it, and it would cause more harm than good. But if we've all evolved to a higher status in terms of, closer to God, then people perhaps might understand why it had to be played out this way. It's a hard question.
Which makes a lot of sense when you really look. I mean, I follow a lot of what the prophets are saying, and I follow what, these worship movements that are going on, and thousands of people who never came to God are coming to God, which would make sense, because the more that happens, the more those people are going to start to wake up. They're going to start to investigate this truth.
It's a better way, because we've talked about it, during the Second World War, when Germany was bombing Britain, everybody turned to the church. They all went to church, but the problem was they weren't finding their own sovereignty. They weren't finding their own connection to God. What people were doing was, it was all about the physical structure of the church and the priest. And that's when the war ended. They just walked away from it, because they hadn't actually found God. What they'd found was comfort. Now, what's happening now, people are finding God, and that means that they won't walk away from it. So there's an awful lot going on, which only in a few years' time will people actually understand humanity turned a corner.
Yeah, man, we are sure that's what it feels like. I mean, like I said, I feel it, and some days it's very tiring, but
very hard.
Wow. I remember when 9/11 happened, and it just shook me, like millions of people. It shook me. I had young babies. I remember watching it on the TV and just being in shock. And at the time, I used to collect things. I would make scrapbooks. And so I created a scrapbook about it. And in that, I started researching to get all my stuff. I found articles from all around the world. I found, all these things. They were all identical. And as I was researching, I started finding other things and started going, wait, how did an airplane hit the Pentagon and there's not even a piece of scrap anywhere that would show some resemblance of an airplane? That's no way. There's no way that's possible. And I remember back then being very young and talking about it, and just, everybody shut it down. And so I kind of just went, oh, well, but now in the last 2.5 years, as I've been waking up, I'm going, oh my gosh, all that stuff that I was finding about 9/11 was absolutely true.
Well, the part of the Pentagon that was blown up, and it really was blown up, the part that was blown up was the United States Navy section, because the Navy have always been the good guys. But we know that through contacts that a lot of people were tipped off. There were a lot of people who worked there who had kids, and they were
Yeah.
told not to take their kids to the kindergarten, but to take them to their offices and keep them in the offices, and that saved their lives.
Wow.
So it was the Navy part that was blown up, and it was Bush threatening the United States Navy, who were the White Hats. That's why we know about Trump and the Marines, because they've always been a thorn in the side of the deep state. And so that's why that was done to the Pentagon as a threat. Because when the 9/11 occurred, all the gold was
Yeah.
stolen, because that was going to be used for a new financial time. And of course, the bad guys stole the gold. That's Dick Cheney and others. And of course, we go back to Kennedy being murdered. Kennedy was
Yes.
just about to kick the Federal Reserve out and go back on the gold standard. That's why they killed him. 9/11 was to steal all the gold. So this is a third time lucky. And so what the White Hats are saying is, we've learned our lesson. These evil Satanists are very clever. They'll stop at nothing. So we really have to up our game. And that's why we're in this big part, partly that, but partly since the time of Kennedy's death and the Twin Towers, the evil side has grown in strength and
Yeah.
power to the point that it was on the verge of taking over the world. And
Oh,
that is
yeah.
why it's a lot more painful now than had it have been 20 odd years ago.
Yeah. And a lot of that is on the church's shoulders, really, because the
Mm.
churches, for so many years, told their people, don't worry about politics. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Just, and the mega churches of the 80s. And it's like there's so much that when you look back, you can see the cunning plan of the devil ultimately. Let's get all the people that do sort of believe in God to lull into sleep, and then we can sneak in and take over. But thank God a lot of us have woken up and said, no more.
Partly that, as partly that is, you heap taxes on people. They don't have time to think, they just have time to work. And when
Yes,
you put pressures on people, they can't, ask themselves questions or find time to go to church. They're too busy
right.
keeping alive. And what the deep state has done is it's made paid slaves out of the Western world. So out of the
Mhm.
English speaking people, we are paid slaves, which means we get paid, but we have to go and work.
Yep.
And the type of work we do ensures that we don't have much time with our children, our families, our homes, husbands or wives. And they know that if they can destroy the family, they can destroy a connection to God. So you're right, it's been a very clever plan. And that's why the White Hats want to morally and financially return to 1955.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the way that the America was in 1955, yes, technologically it was a lot more primitive, but my God, and I mean that, it was so much more happier place to be. And I'm not saying there wasn't any evil, but what I'm saying is that if you would compare what we have in America now with 1955, yes, it was more simplistic, but people actually were happier. And what's the point in being a human being and being unhappy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we had more time. I mean, you could
Yeah,
actually spend time with your neighbors, spend time with your children, spend time with family. And yeah,
and
I
have
hope,
time to spend on the school board, or to,
yeah,
to think about running for sheriff, or to go down and tell the governor that you're not happy about this, that, and the other. And what's happened is there's been a complete split between the citizens and the machines of power. And you're right, this has caused people to take back their responsibility, and that's what's happening.
yeah, thank God. That's the best part about it. I mean,
I think so.
and we're learning. I mean, I didn't know, I didn't pay attention to our Constitution. I mean, I had to learn it in, grade school, but I didn't know it. I didn't understand my rights. There's so much that, I mean, I just started learning about really deeply, about being a U.S. national versus a
Yes.
citizen and all that's entailed with that. And it's like, Oh my gosh, every layer of our reality.
But you're talking stuff now that's going to be above the head of people who are not
Yeah.
watching us. But the reality, of course, is that what we're going to go into is you'll be a citizen of the earth. And that is why the new currency, the new money, will not have a dollar sign or a euro sign or a pound sign. It will just denominations, 5, 10, and so on. So when we go through this new change, so somebody with a 10 note in America could go to China, and that is 10.
Yeah.
So what's happening is barriers are going to be broken down because barriers create wars.
Hmm.
People think about the Tower of Babel. The Bible says that everybody spoke one language, and because of that, the resources could be pulled amazingly. And they started to build a tower to challenge God. And so God said, right, you're all going to have your own language. Now, I don't know if that side is true. It's in the Bible. But the reality is that with so many different languages and everyone in their own country, we look on everyone else as may not be an enemy, but as different or strange or not
Hmm.
like us. But if we were to accept that we were citizens of the earth, then maybe we would get along a lot better. And instead
Hmm.
of trying to build towers to challenge God, we could build hospitals of the highest quality or schools of the highest quality. And
Hmm.
that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be arguing about the most ridiculous, stupid things. I get really cross when the cameras are all outside the latest iPhone store, and the iPhone store opens at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 a.m., and the first person goes and gets it free or something. And they take all these pictures of, you know, this kid or whoever it is who's got the iPhone, and then what about somebody who does a good deed for someone? Supposing you live in a block and there's an old lady there, and you haven't seen her for 3 days, and so you knock on the door and you find that she's fallen, she's broken her leg. So you call 911. They take her away and sort her out, and then you go for the next 2 weeks and you buy her groceries because she
Yeah.
can't get out. Where's the cameras to say that that guy's a hero who did that?
Right.
Where's the great celebration of that act of kindness? That's what we don't have on this earth. That's what
Yeah.
we've got to have. We've got to get back to evil being not rewarded
Yeah.
and good being rewarded. And
Yeah.
that's not just a law change, that's a cultural change. And that's what we've got to bring about.
It is. Yeah. I mean, that's at the heart level,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
that's a heart change and a mindset change. I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you could go down so many rabbit holes of our minds and how our minds are affected, how our thinking is affected based on the chemicals and all these things. That's wow. That's fascinating. You're so lovely to speak with.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's I've been going now for 11 years, and I'm still here. So I've got a
Yeah.
job to do, just like you've got a job to do. And we're not in competition. We work together.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to a vacation when this is all over.
Yeah.
The plan still is to do 3 months in America on a regular basis, and the rest of the time in Britain. We were originally the organization was going to relocate to Arizona. Um,
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
oh yeah, yeah. The original plan was to do that, and you know, of course, then President Trump didn't go to Arizona; he went to Florida. So the plan is to do maybe three
Mhm.
months of the year in Florida and the rest of the time in Britain. But I have a sneaking suspicion that the new head of government won't be either in Florida or in Washington D.C. It'll be in another state. But
Really?
because I've got such a huge group in America, I will need to relocate and do some time of the year out there. I'll
Oh,
bring the
that'll
dogs
be
with
fun.
me.
Yeah, and the cats. What about the cats?
No, they don't fly. They don't like flying. The cats are going to have to
Oh,
stay, but the dogs are okay. They can
the
they can
the
cope with it.
dogs. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Are you guys thinking of doing that soon, hopefully?
Uh, yeah, I think well when the world is sensible,
Yeah.
then I mean I really I think you guys use the term rock hound. We call it fossil collecting. Um, the Tucson show in Arizona. That's now, it's always been February, January, February, March, and I missed it this year. So we're absolutely, definitely gonna be out there for the next one, because I just got to go and look at all those lovely fossils and minerals.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that that happened there at this time of the year.
Yeah, it's the biggest in the world. All of the motels, they just chuck everybody
Really?
out, and then they just fill their rooms with the different sellers, and then you get your brochure, and you say, right, room 507. Oh, that's quartz crystals, or room 802, that's Tyrannosaurus Rex teeth, and that's how it is.
And
And
it's just once a year?
once a year, yeah, once a year.
Wow.
February, Tucson, Arizona, fantastic. And I'm absolutely determined next February I hook
To
up my
be there.
get out there and do it. Yeah, absolutely. Mm.
That's my daughter would love that. My daughter, when she was 2, 3 years old, studied dinosaurs. I mean, we would read to her by the time she was 5. None of us could say the words of half of them. She could sound them out, spell them. We
That's
were
right.
like, "How do you know about all these?" She was fascinated. Just we thought she was going to be a paleontologist because she was
Well,
so
this
fascinated.
is this is the thing with America, because most British kids pronounce the dinosaur names in the American and not the British, and so these kids are going to university to study it, and they're getting
My
told
daughter
off.
knows both. She knows the Latin name and the yeah. I'm like, what kid knows that?
Well, you see, if you think about Diplodocus and Diplodocus, that's the American and the British version of the same creature.
Hmm.
That's what I mean. It's like it's very interesting. So you're an
Hmm.
American paleontologist and a British paleontologist having a conversation. It's really funny listening to the pronunciations of the words. But we are all cousins,
Yeah.
and if nothing else, this situation has brought the British patriots a lot closer to the American patriots,
Hmm.
unlike anything ever else. And I wouldn't forget Australia, New Zealand, and Canada as well.
Right.
But it's brought this group as one,
Hmm.
and I think we should all be very thankful of that.
And I don't know that that's ever happened before. I mean, I think
Never
this
happened
is
before. We've always been
yeah,
separate. No, we've always been separate.
yeah,
Yeah, but this
yeah,
is a world war. It's not just in your
correct.
backyard. This is a real war.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's wild. I'll tell you.
Mm.
Wow. Well, what else do you want to talk about? Do you have
Your
anything else on your mind?
No, I haven't got anything on my mind. I'm on vacation.
That's great.
Your show, you could just say no. I
Okay,
mean,
so here's what I want to just talk for a little bit about. Okay, so the quantum physics stuff.
okay.
I'm sure you have lots of good information and stories about that, about all sorts of things. Do you teach on that in with connecting consciousness? Do you guys get into the quantum world? I may know fifth dimension and stuff, but
Well, what Becky does, she's working with a couple of the other coordinators, and they're working on spiritual training. And each month, a spiritual topic is taken, and then the coordinators will disseminate that to the members, and then they will have their Zooms and their Zoom rooms, and they will work
okay,
on that. But in terms of what you're talking about at the moment, the attention would be on the quantum financial system, and
okay,
how quantum computing can
hmm,
be used to break us out of the satanic Babylonian control of money. And then, in terms of quantum computers, in terms of um, planning what the human race will do. So the American good guys have the only true quantum computer.
hmm.
The Chinese and the Russians have a sort of a one. The deep state don't have one. And
Really? Okay, I
remember,
didn't know that. That's good to know.
the National Security Agency is a white hat organization,
The
not
National Security Agency.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, not the National Security Council. The
Hmm.
NSA is a white hat operation. It's the only one of the intel names that has supported Trump.
Hmm.
Even the
Yep.
FBI
That,
don't
that,
support Trump,
no.
but
Yep.
the NSA do. And it was the
Hmm.
NSA that gave Trump all of the conversations between Hillary Clinton and everybody else. And they have a quantum machine.
Okay. That's fast. I love all that.
Well,
I did.
it gives me confidence, because when my mother was working for MI5, her stuff was going to the National Security Agency, so
Yeah.
that's very nice. But of course, on the other hand, my grandfather, he was going all stuff with the CIA, and my grandfather was English through and through, but he would just, because he was talking to CIA so much, he would use all the American words. So in Great Britain, a man wears a pair of trousers, but
Uh-huh.
you guys don't call it trousers, you call it pants.
Yeah.
So my grandfather would use all of the American words, and he didn't even realize it. Like in Britain, when you go to wash your hands, you turn the tap on, TAP. You turn the tap on. You guys turn the faucet on. And there are so many words. And so my grandfather was completely drawn in with the CIA, but my mother was more independent. Because my grandfather was a British diplomat. I forgot to say he was a British diplomat, so he had a diplomat passport. He'd go anywhere, but my mother didn't. So she stayed mostly with British people, but because the NSA was managing her, it was much more of a white hat operation. So thank God, because
Yeah.
she was my caregiver.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so fitting for then what you've now
Maybe,
into and what you're doing, you know? It was all
maybe,
probably planned that way, specific.
possibly, yeah. God works in mysterious
Yeah,
ways.
he sure does. Yeah, that's fascinating. I am very curious about the financial change
Well,
and
well, if you want to ask a few questions on that, and then we'll wrap it up, because I know you're getting.
okay. What do you see, what do you foresee with that? And what do you see and what do you suggest? Are you giving, I don't want to put you on the spot, but like what would you suggest to people?
Why not? Everybody else does.
All right, all right. Yeah, but what do you see as far as that and how long? I mean, I guess nobody knows for sure how long, but do you think that's something
It, it's
within months kind of a thing?
it's tied to the world's political situation. You can't have one without the other. As long as
Right,
Biden's in office, nothing's going to happen. You can't bring in a new renaissance for the
right,
world if you've still got the old guard in position. So, these are your key pointers: the Queen of England,
right,
Biden, and other people like that. In terms of the financial side, it's a revolution, because it's doing away with taxes. Taxes
right.
are illegal. They're illegal in your country, and they're illegal in my country. It's illegal to take money out of your wages. It's not the employer takes money out of your wages, it's the federal government. Who gave
Right,
them the right to do it? So this new change that's coming is not just about EBS or tribunals. It's
hmm,
about how we the people live in the
right.
new age. And so, if you imagine you don't pay any tax out of your wages, that's like a massive pay rise.
Oh my gosh,
So,
yeah.
so much is slated to come in, but
Hmm.
it won't happen until all of this poison has been drawn out of the human race, and that's what's happening now.
Yeah. I forgot what the other question I was going to. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. You know, do you have suggestions for people on things to pay attention to? I mean, I always hear we should be putting all of our, as much as we can, into gold, into precious metals, things like that. Um, what do you think about like the crypto stuff? I mean, I've heard back and forth about that.
Well, if a crypto is asset gold, silver, precious metal asset backed, I think it'll be okay. If a crypto is just
That makes
like
sense.
a dollar bill and is not backed, well, what's going to back it? We
Right.
know where we're going. We're going into asset backed. I mean, look, today and tomorrow, Putin is going to go back his currency. That's the start of it. This is why everyone's talking about Russia coming off the SWIFT banking system. The
Oh
truth is,
yeah, I just heard about that last night. Hmm.
yeah, so it's a joke, because it doesn't exist for Russia. They're well ahead of the game here, but so they should be, because he's doing a lot for the White Hats. He's actually putting himself out. He's becoming vilified, so
Yep.
he's got to get some payback for that. So he's going to move his country further down the road of salvation, because he's taking it on the chin. But the reality will be a completely new financial way of dealing, um, and a removal of the Babylonian spell that exists on money at the moment.
Yeah.
So in time scales, when Biden goes, when there's no more wars and fighting wars, then it's time for the revaluation, the RV. Can't have an RV while bombs are still falling.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, that's good to know. It makes sense. I've kind of wondered that, but it absolutely makes sense because as long as these guys are still in the seats that they're in, it's like putting a puzzle together and all the pieces have to fit at exactly the right time and in the right space.
Well, why would the good guys want to give the bad guys any kudos for something
Yep.
great? I'm going to do it. And this is about the salvation of humanity. And I know
Yeah.
that, and me included, I'd like it done tomorrow. Thank you, please.
Right.
But it can't be done tomorrow because evil must never be allowed back on the earth again, and it's got to be
Yeah.
got right. So that's what this
Amen.
is about. And we've done it this far, so another few weeks, and I think we'll just manage that.
That's awesome. Well, this has been so fascinating and so enjoyable. Thank you so much. And thanks
I
for
hope
even
your
staying on longer.
that's all right. I hope your audience enjoy it. I hope it's fun, and if your audience have liked it, then yeah, I'll come back and we can have another chat.
That would be awesome. I would love that. I would absolutely love that. Well, thank you. You have a great rest of are you in the weekend yet? Is it?
Not quite.
Not yet, almost, right?
Which part of the US are you?
I'm
East?
in Chicago,
Oh,
so
okay, right.
central.
So you're about 6 hours behind us.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not
you're
bad.
about 6 hours behind us, something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Not like my
thank
friends
you.
in Australia. Right. Listen, lots of love to you. Lots of love to
You
the audience.
too.
God bless to everyone. And just hold in there, not hold the line. I'm sick of that term. I'm sick of popcorn holding the line. Just
Yeah.
hold it together with your families, hold it together with your friends, and remember that enough truth will come out
Yeah.
for you to be able to hold your head up when you go out, and people will say, whoever you are, they'll say, well, that person got it, that person knew, and they'll say, how did they know? So enough truth will come out for those of us who have this truthful God connection to actually know that we were right in what we did. Just believe
Yes.
that. Okay.
I love it. Thank you for those final words. That's
Uh,
awesome. Thanks
Lots of
so
love.
much. Thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you next time. God bless you. Have a great one.